welcome to another episode of the Ruck On show. Um, I'm Joe Kramer. I'm the founder of Ruck On, and today I'm going to be doing another just kind of quick, informal episode, similar to episode 4, um, where I just kind of share something with you that's uh, been on my mind. Um, Hopefully brings you a little bit of value. And so today, kind of the impetus behind this show actually comes from two questions that were posed by my friends over at Green Beret Fitness on their stories a couple days ago. Um, and so the first question that they posed to their following is, what is the most physically challenging thing that you've done? Um, and I that kind of made me think for a second, like, shoot, what is the most physically challenging thing that I've done? Um, and so the second thing that they posted, and Greg, who I believe is the founder of Green Beret Fitness, Greg, I'm incorrect. Please let me know. But anyway, they posted about two similar philosophies for approaching situations that one might describe as stressful or overwhelming. And you might be familiar, especially if you're in the military, of one of these phrases called "embrace the suck." Um, and so what Greg does is he poses kind of a slightly different philosophy that can be applied to many of the same situations, called peace in chaos, finding peace in chaos. And he talks about how situations that he's been um, in combat, that was the effective kind of mindset and strategy that he used, was finding peace in the chaos that surrounded him. So for me today, what I'm going to do is share uh, my response to what's the most physically challenging thing that I've done. And it's interesting because when I thought about it, the most physically challenging thing that I've done also encompasses two situations that I think speak to both of those uh, mindsets or philosophies, however you want to look at those, of embrace the suck and finding peace in chaos. And it kind of led me to think about that topic a little bit, and how I see the value in both of those mindsets. And I think in certain situations, one might be more effective than the other, actually. Um, so that's what I'm going to share with you today. I hope you like it, and let's get started. Okay, so uh, we'll start off with what is the most challenging thing that I've done. Now, this is kind of difficult for me because I've done some pretty demanding things, some physically challenging things. Being a hockey player, being an Army officer, and going through various training exercises and stuff. So it was a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out, well, what was actually the most physically challenging, physically demanding experience that I've gone through. And what I kind of settled on was during my time as a cadet at West Point. uh, every cadet, it's a graduation requirement, goes through, um, it's called CLDT, Cadet Leadership Development Training. And every year, the duration of it changes based on, a bunch of different requirements. But at its core, what it, I guess the easiest way to describe it is it models very similarly off of U.S. Army's Ranger School. Um, and essentially what it is you show up, and there's kind of a reception process, and you check into these bays. You kind of get an idea of, the people that you're going to be going through this with, your squad, your platoon, what have you. In the first weeks, just kind of brushing up on basic soldiering. How to use your rifle, making sure you remember how to do land navigation, going through battle drills, stuff like that. They issue out a couple of crew-served weapons, so M249s and 240 Bravo machine guns. And so when those get doled out, the guys that are carrying those practice going through crew-served weapon drills, how to set it up, how to break it down, etc. And then, and again, this is kind of where things vary, is the time that you actually spend out in the field for CLDT. And so when I went through, we spent probably close to 10 days. And if you're one of my classmates, class of 2016, you're like, dude, Joe, it was way longer than that or way shorter than that, feel free to let me know. My memory's pretty good, but it's not perfect. And so what you do is your platoon goes out, not for the entire 10 days. So you go out for 4 or 5 days, and then you come back for a refit day, kind of shower, wash some of your uniforms and stuff, make sure your gear is kind of all set, and you go back out into the field for another stretch of 4 or 5 days, whatever. And so during those stretches of time when you're out in the field, it's you, your platoon, your weapon, your gear, and your ruck, and that's it. You're living out of your ruck for 4 or 5 days. And there are a couple instances where we get kind of airlifted to our next objective, and stuff like that. But for the most part, we're rucking the entire time. So it's just 4 or 5 straight days of being in a patrol base, going out on rucking to a mission, completing a mission, whether it's a key leader engagement or setting up an ambush, or reacting to contact from the enemy, and then rucking to a new patrol base and setting up security and trading shifts, pulling security throughout the night, and then in the morning, same thing, get up, ruck to a new objective. And so I'd have to say that's probably the most physically demanding thing that I've done. Just because it's the amount of miles over the amount of time. And so what CLDT is really designed to do is it's designed to to help develop you as a leader by purposefully putting you in stressful situations where you need to make decisions. So the reason that I liken CLDT to Ranger School is that the way the platoon is set up is the leadership positions rotate every single day and like multiple times a day. So the platoon leader, the person who's receiving kind of the orders of what we need to do, changes 2 times a day. The platoon sergeant, kind of second in charge, switches out 2 times a day. The squad leaders, the RTO, they all switch off 2 times a day. So essentially you get a rotation where you might be in charge of the patrol base and kind of making sure that we are pulling correct security throughout the night. We don't get completely overrun if we get attacked at night. And then you get a rotation where you're in a leadership position during an actual mission, whether it's setting up an ambush or doing a key leader engagement. And that's how you're evaluated, is when you're in those leadership positions. How do you perform? Whether you're the platoon leader or whether you're one of the squad leaders, and things happen. How do you react? Do you freeze up? Do you take action? Is it the right action? Do you do super awesome? Or do you make decisions? Maybe it's not the best decision, but hey, at least you're kind of failing forward. But essentially, one of the main lessons I think that you kind of get out of it is, as a leader, that the option that I described of freezing up, not doing anything, that's not an option. You can't do that, or you will fail. You'll die. You'll get people killed. And so what I'd like to do now is kind of address that second question I brought up at the beginning of the show, and the two philosophies of embrace the suck and finding peace in chaos. And so I have two stories from CLDT, and each of those stories hits, I think, each of those philosophies. And I think embracing that philosophy, kind of looking back, that philosophy really applied to one type of situation better than it did another. And as it just so happens, both of these stories come from times while we were out in the field that I was in a leadership position. So let me hit on the peace in chaos bit first. So on this one particular mission, I was named as the platoon leader, and the platoon leader had not really briefed us super well on what we were supposed to be doing. But the basics of it were that we were going to be going to a village that wanted support from the U.S. forces. So we were going to go, and we were going to kind of set up and make sure that they wanted help from us, from other, non-government organizations to come in and help their village out. So we're going to go in, conduct that key leader engagement, and return to our patrol base. And I was patrol leader, or platoon leader, so I was going to be the one engaging with the village elders, what have you, and kind of being the one responsible for how well this goes or not. So I drew up kind of a quick tentative plan of, okay, this is how we're going to get to the village. When we get to the village, this is how I want people to kind of set up, a couple squads pulling security on the perimeter of the village, facing out, making sure that we, people don't just start coming in and doing whatever they want, shooting at us, and then having a squad or two come into the village with me as kind of a interior security while I essentially conduct business with the leaders of that village. And then we were going to take a different alternate route from the village back to our patrol base. So it all sounded pretty good. And, we got to the village, no issues. And once we got to the village, shit kind of hit the fan. So when we first showed up to the village, they all kind of came out to welcome us, to receive us. And the village elder keeled over with a heart attack. Not an actual heart attack, but the people in the village are actors, and then so they kind of have an idea of like, this is what we're gonna do, and and then that's how they gauge how do I react, how does my platoon react to what happens. So they have the script, we don't. And so the village elder keeled over, so I had my platoon medic come in to try and render first aid. Um, and the village elders were they were hesitant to let this happen, and they were hesitant to let us go inside, um, and let my medic treat this guy. Um, and so we finally managed to persuade him, like, hey, like, if you want your village elder, to live, to be okay, we need to help him out. We need to help him out right away. Uh, so luckily, that we worked everything out. And then as we go inside and we're dealing with this, all of a sudden I start hearing gunfire outside. So we start getting attacked. um, and then while my medic's treating the village elder, and it's kind of clear that he's going to be out of commission, so then I have to deal with this dynamic of the village leader's son, who's distrustful to Americans, and kind of the second in charge village elder, and they kind of have a little bit of like a bit of a power struggle. I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. And the second village elder, he really wants American support, but the son doesn't. He doesn't trust us, doesn't want us. And so then that's kind of the dynamic that I have to work with, while the village elder's being treated with a heart attack, and while my platoon is being attacked outside. And the only thing I can do is trust in the fact that I brief those squad leaders, hey, this is what you need to do if we get attacked, and hopefully they're executing on it. And so I think this is really where kind of embracing that peace and chaos mentality is really helpful, because I sort of had to tune out everything that I wasn't directly in control of. There's all this chaos going on around me, but at the end of the day, as the platoon leader, my job is to conduct business with those village elders. I brief my squads on pulling security, and that's what they're doing. I can't worry about that. That's chaos that I just have to tune out. The village elder that I was supposed to speak with has a heart attack. He's out of commission. He's being treated by my medic. That's chaos that I need to filter out. And so finding the peace, and I've got to have this discussion with two people, one who doesn't trust me and doesn't want me to be there, and the other that really does want me to be there, and navigating that. And so finding that peace and that focus of, like, this is what I need to focus on and do while this chaos is going on around me. I think that's the attitude that I needed to have at that moment. And so just to kind of wrap up the story, I had this discussion, and trying to talk to the village elder's son and explain, what we're trying to do, trying to give, resources and aid and all kinds of stuff to help his village kind of grow and prosper. And I can see as we're having a conversation, as we're kind of going back and forth, that he's starting to kind of warm up a little bit. He's like, I was flat out, like, did not like you, did not trust you when you guys first showed up. But, like, we've been talking, and okay, I'm listening a little bit. And so finally, we're kind of getting towards the end of our conversation, and guys, he's just kind of flat out like, okay, all right, I think I can get on board with letting U.S. forces and these non-government aid agencies come into our village. Why should I trust you? How can I trust you? And, over the course of our conversation, I felt like I was trying to prove, like, hey, we're trying to do good, like, you can trust me, And so having that direct question, I was like, I told him, I was like, I don't know what else I can say to make you trust me, but what I do have, and, uh, on our OCPs, or ACU, Army Combat Uniform, we've got these cargo pants essentially that have a ton of pockets. And so in one pocket, I had a Cliff Energy bar and one of those small Gatorade bottles packed up for when the mission was over. It's kind of a little bit of a treat and sustenance. And I said, there's nothing I can say more than what I've already said to make you trust me. But what I do have is this energy bar and this Gatorade as this is all that I have to give you to show you that you can trust me, that I'm trying to help you. And guy was like, okay, all right, like, we're good, let's do it. And so with that, we kind of wrapped everything up. The firefight on the outskirts of the village kind of died down, and we conducted our after action review, where we kind of like pause the the greater combat situation that we're in, to just focus on what just happened, how did it go, what went well, what didn't go well, and the people in the leadership positions kind of get an idea of, hey, here's how you did, and it also gives insight to everyone else within the platoon of like, hey, next time you're in a leadership position, here's some things to think about. And what was at least what I thought was kind of cool and kind of interesting, because I was sweating bullets the entire time, and the one of my trainers flat out told me, he was like, to be honest, I thought you were gonna fuck that KLE up. The way it was going, I didn't think you were gonna turn it around and, essentially close the deal. But you did. That's great work. That's good job. That's that's what we want to see. And the actor that played the village elder's son told me that the gesture of giving the bit of food and drink that I had as a gesture of trust and goodwill was essentially what sold him on letting us help and closing that deal. And so that's, I think, like I said, kind of tying this back to finding peace in chaos, is there was all this stuff going around, all this chaos, and this really wasn't one of those situations where I feel like embrace the suck was the right mentality, because it sucked ruck marching into this village. It sucked that it was a difficult engagement, it was a difficult conversation, but that's not it wasn't just suck, it was chaos. There was a lot of stuff happening to produce stress, and so the only way to really deal with that is to find the peace in it, to focus on only the things that I can control. So that's it. I don't want this to go on too long, so I'm probably going to take my embrace the suck story, and I'm going to break this up into 2 podcast episodes, to focus more specifically on that story. Keep things short, so you can watch this one, watch the next one, what have you. But I'm curious what your thoughts are. What do you think? Are you an embrace the suck person? Are you a peace and chaos person? Or are you somebody that have been in a bunch of different situations that maybe one mindset works for one situation, but maybe the other mindset works better for another situation. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Curious to hear what you think of these kind of more informal, shorter podcast episodes. So interested to hear your thoughts. Reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. Look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Ruck On.